Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen Robinson, and I am your host. And today we have a very special guest, Scott Brown, who is an entrepreneur in the toy and game space with several successful exits. His product, PaddleSmash, is best described as a love child of Pickleball and Spikeball and will be launching in September 2022. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Great to be here, Arlen. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am super excited to talk to you. Those games, Pickleball and Spikeball, I'm actually familiar with both of them. So I know our listeners, those that aren't familiar with it, are going to be interested to know, kind of how your product is a kind of a love child of both of them. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about it as well. Today we're going to be talking about launching a brand and finding your first customers. So this is a great episode for any of our listeners or viewers that are just have been kicking a can around about some ideas of launching an e-commerce business and may not know quite where to start and may want to know some lessons learned. And I know you've had several successful exits in the e-commerce space, you as well as your business partner, Tim Swindle. So I'm super excited to hear some of those stories. So before we get into the topic for today, why don't you tell us, a little bit more about your background and some of those successful exits that you had?
Yeah. So I think it's good to kind of skip ahead of some of my background and get to the interesting section, which was I joined in 2008 a business incubator in Chicago. And the goal of that business incubator was to bring entrepreneurs in-house, give them office space, and kind of provide an environment where ideas could be incubated and hopefully kind of funded. And so we would have these brainstorming sessions where we'd come up with ideas. And out of one of those sessions, the session was focused on brain health. And out of one of those sessions, we came up with a concept that ultimately turned into a brick and mortar retail store called Marbles the Brain Store. Okay. And the very first location was in downtown Chicago. Fall of 2008 was not a great time to be launching a business. Yeah, this is like, if everyone can put their brain back into it, it was like right when Bear Stearns was collapsing, Lehman Brothers was collapsing. It was the beginning of a recession. Yep. But I will say that there was some parts of it that were fortuitous for our business. One was that we were given a really opportunistic retail location in downtown Chicago that we wouldn't have been able to have otherwise. And it was because this mall was desperate for someone to fill this vacancy before the holidays. Okay. And so they came to us and they said, hey, we know you're looking. We actually started as a kiosk at a mall just to test the concept. They had seen that and they said, well, come and put that into this location. We're like, all right, great. Like on the cheap, we can try this out in a really great spot. We tried it out. It went great. We ultimately ended up opening a bunch of stores. We, over the course of 10 years, grew and had 40 stores across the US. And so it became a fairly decent sized brick and mortar retailer and e-commerce retailer. So we launched our own website really about a year into our business. And that thing grew along with our brick and mortar business. And we had a big website as well. And in the toy and game space, we became well known as a place to launch your product. We were like an incubator of new concepts. So that kind of brings us to the story of my business partner, who was a successful tech entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. He had launched a business and built it and ultimately sold that to LinkedIn. But while doing that, he had this little itch that he wanted to start a game. He and his buddies would always play this game in college and at beach or at lake houses. And he was like, I want to make this into a real thing that like people actually could buy. It was right when Cards Against Humanity was just killing it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, this is an interesting space. And his game was a little adult too. So he launched it and brought it to my store. We were the very first store to carry it. And so that's how we got to know each other, is that I carried his game in my store. We got to be friends, and his game grew and was very successful. It got into Target. Mm-hmm. Wow. It got into Target a month after he finished his Kickstarter. He got his game into Target, which is kind of unheard of.
Yeah, for sure.
Got it into Target, and then Walmart and Barnes and Noble and all the other key players for the toy and game retail space. And he ultimately sold that business off to a bigger toy and game player that's private equity backed. So he was able to have a nice exit from that. Okay. I personally was able to sell my business off to a big Canadian company as well. So we both exited our businesses around the same time, and called 2016, 2017.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's some good stuff, man. And if you don't mind me asking, that location of the mall where you were in Chicago, where was that? Because I'm actually originally from the Chicago area. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, and I'm very familiar. So where exactly was that?
Well, so two things. I lived in Evanston for 8 years.
Oh,
so
wow.
We should talk Evanston at some point. Yeah. So, I lived in Evanston on Colfax. So
I know where that is. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Wow.
But we opened it just off of Michigan Avenue, Magnificent Mile, on Grand Avenue. Mm-hmm. So there's a mall. It's known best for its anchor tenant, Nordstrom. It's basically right before the bridge, going south on Magnificent Mile. There's a mall on the west side that has Nordstrom as an anchor tenant, but we weren't inside the mall. We were on Grand Avenue. So part of the mall is street facing. Street facing stores on Grand Avenue.
That mall, you're not talking about the Water Tower. That's another mall.
No, we ultimately had a location at Water Tower as well.
Okay, got it.
But that was not our original location. We were farther south along Michigan Avenue.
Okay, I got it.
People, Joe's Crab Shack was right across the street from us.
Okay. Yeah, know where that is. Okay, awesome, man. It's a small world. Yeah, that's a great location, and it's you're very fortunate to be able to get in there and get that type of foot traffic for sure. Because I know during the holiday seasons, that whole area, Magnificent Mile. I mean, it's you can't beat that. You can't beat the amount of traffic you're going to get.
Yeah, there's always these moments when your business kind of is at the precipice of like success or a successful launch or failure. And that was really one of those points for us, because if we wouldn't have gotten that spot, I think we would have killed the idea based off of how things went as a kiosk at the mall, which was not good. We were ready to kill it.
Wow.
Given that opportunity, and that opportunity was enough to kickstart this business.
I got it. Well, that just really reinforces the age-old saying of, it's location, location, location. So, you guys had that down pat for sure. So, well, that's great, man. Well, thank you for sharing that background. And it's very interesting. We'll definitely have to talk a little bit more after the recording. I often don't meet too many people that are from Evanston, Illinois. So, it's a small world for sure, or at least have lived in Evanston for some period of time. But as I alluded at the top of the episode, we're going to be talking about launching a brand and finding your first customers. So where I want to start at is, what are some things that a brand should really have in place, before doing any initial marketing to try to get their first customers?
Well, this is it probably goes without saying, but a good product does so much work for you.
Right.
And finding that good product requires work on the front end. So in my role at Marbles, the Brain Store, I was the chief merchant, which meant I was the one that made the decisions for every product that came into the store and onto the website. So I was constantly hearing pitches. And I'd say the most common theme of a pitch when someone would start is they would say, "My friends and family love this game." And, for me, that was always a red flag. Friends and family obviously love the game.
It's a little bit biased.
Yeah, they're biased. And so, my big challenge to them and to kind of myself actually going forward is to always make sure I'm getting as accurate of feedback as I can about an idea. One of the things I always try to do is when I am presenting an idea to a group, I'll always present it as someone else's idea, even if it is my own. And so I'll say something like, hey, I've got a friend that created this concept. I would like you guys to let's test it together and figure out if this is any good. And that way people don't feel like they're hurting my feelings when they give honest criticism. And for me, that's just been a good mechanism to make sure I've got good product before I start trying to put it out into the world. Just like, do the work to find out, because obviously I think it's good. And then there's this inherent bias where you want to be told yes, or you want to be told it's good. And you really have to put that aside to find out for sure if it is. Because honestly, most of my ideas are bad. I mean, it's just the reality of it. It is a numbers game, and most are bad. And my job is to find the ones that are good. At least do as much work as I can before I have to put the money into putting it out into the world. You never know if it's good until people have to part with their money for it.
For sure.
You never know for sure, but you can do a lot of work up front to lower the risk.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's a great piece of advice. I love it, the fact that you said when you were pitching it to friends and family, they didn't know it was your idea, because it's so hard to get honest feedback from your friends and family, because they don't want to let you down, they don't want to crush your dream, and so they're just going to be nice. And so if you say it's somebody else, it's a friend, that definitely is going to get them to be more, give their real opinion. So I love that piece of advice, for sure. But it really does all come down to just having that solid product before you get out there, because if you come out too early, the product may not be, maybe it's not fully tested with a certain number of customers. Maybe, there's some flaws in it, but you're in a hurry. All entrepreneurs are in a hurry to get that money, start getting that revenue coming in. But you do have to slow your roll a bit and make sure you're solid with the product development first before getting out there. Now, as far as marketing is concerned, these days, as we all know, there's 1,000,001 marketing channels, to promote any e-commerce business. And so how really does a new brand determine what channels are, really just right for them?
It is a lot of testing and learning. And basically, there's a little bit of spray and pray, kind of like putting a bunch of lines out in the water and see where you get the bites. But there are ways to do that, I think, cost effectively. There's lots of ways to do it. Here's an example of one e-commerce business that I've launched, and we can just kind of use it as one way. And that is, so I built, when I had my retail stores, I built 2 albums of music. So I was the producer, which is still weird for me to say that I'm a producer of music, but I produced these 2 albums. They were educational music. Okay. They taught things like states and state capitals and countries of the world. And they did fine in the stores. It wasn't like they did great. They did fine, but we produced 2 music videos off of the most popular songs. And those music videos actually have done amazing numbers on YouTube. We put them on YouTube for free for people to watch. And the Tour of the States, which is states and state capitals, has over 45 million views. Wow. It averages 20,000 views per day.
Oh, wow.
And so, in that case, I had a built-in audience that then I could market to, that I could say, all right, this audience has already shown me interest. So I kind of put a free product out into the world to gauge interest. And then I leveraged that audience to start promoting product. And so I launched a poster business on Shopify called Brainmaker Posters. Okay. And you can go there and buy the artwork created in the music video. So in the music video, we have an artist illustrating how this song is it's being sung. And in the end, it's a full map of the United States. Okay. And people watch that. And in the end, they invariably want a poster of that to hang on their wall. And so people were asking for that. And I was like, all right, well, people are asking. There's an audience already showing they like the video. Well, let's try a poster version of it. The posters have done great. And so I've subsequently done flashcards. I've done jigsaw puzzles. I'm coming out with a board game this fall. And so there's just been all this opportunity that's come from this sort of free thing. It wasn't free to me. It cost me money to make the music video and to kind of put it out there. But I put it out there for free for the audience. And it was a way for me to kind of test whether there was something there. So that was one way for me to market, was to market through YouTube, using a free thing, and use that to kind of gauge interest and to build an audience first. So go ahead.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I've heard that before, as far as putting something out there free, maybe, free to the end customer. Of course, it's going to cost you a little bit to develop it and put that out there, but that's ultimately just going to be the cost of doing business. But really a great way to get feedback and kind of see where people are at with a particular product category that you're going down. And, because if people are, expressing interest in it, then you can kind of take it to the next level and see eventually, okay, what will they then be willing to actually pay for? But it's also, a great way to build a customer list or a prospective customer list prior to a product launch, because I'd imagine with all those people that, got the free product, you had them in a database. And so, there's a lot of things you can do with that. You can get more information from them, more data, and to determine, where you ultimately want to go with the product that you're actually developing.
Right.
So my next question is really, I think something that you'll be probably very familiar with. And a lot of times it's something that many e-commerce businesses struggle with. And that's really, if your brand is in a super competitive category, what are some things you can do to really get any type of traction? And I know, you were in the toy space, which is super competitive, and especially online these days. What do you do? Because it can be, a little bit overwhelming to figure out how you kind of can build your niche in a competitive space.
Yeah, in the toy and game world, the most common reason someone buys a game is that they are recommended that game by a friend, a family member, or something they've read or heard. And so those are the ways that the toy and game market thinks about getting out into the world. If you're a small and scrappy startup, you don't have the budget to be able to do a commercial on Nickelodeon or wherever. That's how the big companies do it, is they do these commercials, the kids see it, they tell their mom they want it. If you're small, you've got to be scrappy about it. And so part of it is, I think, a willingness to give out free copies. So it is a little bit of look at your friends and family, pick out who is best on social media, send them free copies, and get them to start talking about it. It's just getting the word to start to spread. I think that's as I'm starting a new e-commerce business and a new product, that's one of the things we're doing, is we're looking at kind of our own network of people. Plus, everyone's doing influencers these days. Well, influencers know that too. And so the price of working with influencers has gone through the roof. So there's these sort of top tier influencers priced through the roof. And I will say, I've worked with a top tier influencer, and the numbers we got from kind of that business were not impressive at all.
Oh, wow.
There's a little bit of they now talk about so much that people start to kind of sound it out. And for this business, we're actually not targeting that. We're targeting a bunch of micro influencers. So these are the groups that have very few followers at this point, but it's a small group of loyal followers. So smaller networks, but these people are hungry. They're eager to get word out. And often you can work with these partners for only the cost of a free product. So they want a free product to try themselves. Sometimes you give them another free product to give away to their followers. For me, that's great. I want to get product out into the world. So we've got someone that's willing to take my product, to create content that's about my product. In these negotiations with these influencers, I require that they give me their content once it's made. So there's this relationship where they're creating content for their followers, but I get it back. And that's where the gold is, honestly. That's the gold for me, because I've got a product that is best, and this is toys and games generally. When people see them being played, it's when they want the thing. And so it's user-generated content that can create buzz around a product and really start the snowball. And so getting these influencers to create video of them playing the product that I can then use on my channels and in my ads is what really creates this feeling of I'm missing out. And I mean, I think everyone's trying to create that, but toys and games, it's really, our target is moms and it's moms that want to bring fun into their homes.
Yeah.
It's this noble goal. It's like a great goal. I have a true belief that games are a great way to bring families together. And, families that play together stay together is a phrase that we say in my house.
Right.
And so, games are such a great way to do it. So when moms see other families playing these games, they want that thing. So the goal for me, as I'm making toys and games, is just figure out ways to get it out in front of moms so that moms see it being played. And then in other words, just to get on review sites. There are a lot of review sites that review toys and games, and to just get it out there to them for free copies and get reviews. It does go back to making great product, because if you send it out to the review sites, they're going to review it. They are going to find out if it's good or not. So you've got to make a good thing so they'll give you a positive review.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is awesome. Great pieces of advice. And especially what you mentioned as far as the micro influencer. That's kind of a sweet spot. I've had others on the podcast that have talked about influencer marketing, and specifically micro influencer marketing. Those are typically, influencers that have anywhere from like 5 to maybe 50,000 followers on any of the social networks, something like that. And you're totally right. Those smaller numbers are going to have more engagement. They're more engaged. They have more of a loyal following, and it's a lot easier for them to kind of get a hold to their audience, as opposed to these big, mega influencers that are at the celebrity level that are tens of millions and things like that, where, who knows who all of those followers are. Like half of those are probably bots, or fake accounts. And so these days you got to be careful. So great pieces of advice there. As we get ready to wrap things up, Tim, before we let you go, wanted to see if you can share with us just some brief do's and don'ts when it comes to launching and marketing your brand, just based on the experiences that you've had personally.
Yeah. So this new product that we've created, me and my business partner, Tim, is a product called PaddleSmash. And PaddleSmash, so I'd say one of the do's that we've done with PaddleSmash is we've paid very close attention to what's happening in the marketplace. And you can do this in a lot of ways. I mean, it's as simple sometimes as reading the news, but I would highly encourage people to be on platforms like Twitter. As painful as it is to be on some of these, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you do catch trends. You see what's happening. And one of the trends we saw was the growth of pickleball. Pickleball, fastest growing sport in North America. And honestly, it's just been amazing to see the hockey stick growth of this sport. And so we saw that growth. Being in the toy and game space, we were also very aware of the growth of the game Spikeball. You go to a public park, and for me, public park here in Utah, it is very rare for me to pass the local park and not see a group of kids out there playing Spikeball. Wow. And so we thought, this is a really interesting thing. Both of these sports, outdoor sports generally, just growing. And so a big do for me would be just pay attention to trends, and look for opportunities around those trends. Another do I would say is that, it's like cooking. When you're coming up with a new recipe, you don't have to think of new ingredients. All the ingredients are already created. You're just rearranging the ingredients into new arrangements that create new recipes. And inventions are often the same way. It's rare that there's a brand new thing. It's usually just a Frankenstein version of things that are out there. And so you're kind of taking one piece of one thing you like and one piece of another thing and merging them together. And that's what we've done with PaddleSmash. We've combined the best elements of pickleball and the best elements of round net or spikeball into one game, and we call it PaddleSmash. And so it's for people that like both sports and are looking for something new. They can get a little bit of that experience in a portable backyard play, beach play experience. So those are a couple of do's. A don't, I would say, is a really common thing I would have when I would meet with these aspiring inventors, is they would pitch me an idea. I already said the friends and family thing. So that was a big don't, is don't say in your pitch, hey, friends and family love this. But the other big don't would be that they would say, based off of friends and family feedback, they've already invested $30,000 to $50,000 in this business. I would just say, try to get your product out in the marketplace at a minimum viable level. Yeah. And if it's going to cost you that much to get it in the marketplace, it's probably an idea I would pass on if it's your first idea. Yeah. And so, what I would encourage, if it's a toy and game inventor, I would say, well, look for opportunities where you can test this as cheaply as possible. And so, a card game would be a great example. And Tim, my business partner, he created a card game. He was lucky enough to kind of just fall into the space. He didn't know what he didn't know, but he chose cards, and that's a smart choice for a brand new inventor with a small budget, because you can test, you can make a deck of cards on the cheap. You could do a small production run of 200 copies and then get it out there and find out if people like it or not. Where I get scared is where someone says to me, "Oh, friends and family loved it. I've now invested in $30,000 worth of tools to create this thing." I'm like, "Oh no, like, it's scary. You don't know yet. You don't know yet." And I'm not one to say like, don't be brave and don't take risks. It's always risky being an entrepreneur, but you can minimize the downside risk by creating inexpensive versions of your thing and getting it out into the world for early tests.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing those do's and don'ts. Definitely, I can tell that they came from some lessons learned that you've had, and there's definitely all are very practical. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and I know our listeners have as well, and our viewers as well, Scott. And so before we do let you go, I always like to switch things up and see if our people that I have on can share, if you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think our audience would be interested to know.
Geez, fun fact. I should have been prepared for a fun fact. All right, here's my fun fact. There is a game called Rummikub. I don't know if you've played Rummikub.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it. Yeah.
So hopefully people have played it out there. It's like kind of a classic. It's been around since the 1970s. Quick, like, interesting story is that the guy that created this, he was in Europe. I think he was in the Netherlands, if I remember right. And he thought he was buying a bunch of Rubik's cubes. And he misunderstood or miswrote his order and got a bunch of Rummikubs. Never heard of this game, and started selling it out of his trunk, essentially. He ended up selling it so quickly, it became the most popular game in that country. Oh, wow. And he has created a huge toy and game business. It's one of the biggest. It's one of the top 10 toy and game businesses in the world now.
Okay, wow.
So that's a little bit of a side story. But Rummikub, I competed in the World Rummikub Championships.
Wow.
So I represented the U.S. I went to Sicily and played in this competition against a bunch of other countries. And I had a tracksuit with my name on it. Out there. We actually played one of the rounds of the tournament on Mount Etna, an active volcano. We were on the side of Mount Etna playing it in the World Rummikub Championships. So that's odd and fun fact about me.
Definitely. That definitely is a fun fact. Very interesting. Yeah, Rummikub, I've heard of that. I'll have to look further into that. It sounded familiar, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's an awesome story. But lastly, Scott, before we do let you go, if you don't mind sharing how our listeners and viewers can reach out to you if they want to pick your brain anymore about launching their own brands.
Yeah, please. So my email is scott@paddlesmash.com.
Okay.
And so that's the best way to reach me, is through that email. Okay. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I don't post a whole ton. I would like to be better about that. But the kind of biggest also additional thing is just to note one more time about this game I'm launching. It is set to launch in 2 weeks' time, so early September 2022. It's called PaddleSmash, and as I said, it's a marriage of pickleball and spikeball, and we're excited to get that out into the world. So that's another way you can find me and what I'm working on.
Great, Scott. Well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it. I definitely recommend all of our listeners to reach out to you, and we'll definitely look out for that product once you launch it in September. So sounds very interesting. So I'll be excited once you guys get that out. All right, Scott. Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for joining us today on the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Arlen.
Thank you for listening to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level, but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.